many riders can count themselves lucky enough to have a race named in their honour. Cadel Evans is one of those privileged few. Since retiring in February 2015, Australia's only Tour de France winner has been a driving force behind the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, a World Tour classic for both men and women that takes the peloton along the most scenic roads in his home state of Victoria.
My last race of my professional career was the first edition of the Great Ocean Road Race, which was a kind of unique experience, as in you're riding a race to win a race, and it's a pretty serious race, but you're also the race organiser. It was kind of interesting. The idea of the Great Ocean Road Race really came from the state government, Victorian state government, and they saw the opportunity that cycling gives to promote an area and further on an event that also goes into the community and benefits at a lot of levels. We've been rewarded with getting into the World Tour for sanctioning for the men's race after a short period, and I'd like to think we are a modern classic. We're not trying to be Milan-San Remo. Milan-San Remo has a very long history, Paris-Roubaix has a very long history. We're a modern classic, and so being modern means you can be a bit more dynamic and adaptable. In every edition we've had a different kind of winner, from a small group finish to a sprinter winning from a larger group, not a bunch sprint, but a large group, to solo victors, and that's been, particularly the first three editions, it was a different type of rider, a different type of race every time on the same course, which made, in my mind, great. And the fact that you don't know who's going to win right till the end was, for me, that was the most important thing, because in the end, as all of us as fans, that's what we want to see.
Shoulder to shoulder, it's McCarthy, the Queenslander. Gerrans is fading, it's McCarthy.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and to be back home and win an Australian race on home soil. And after a pretty successful summer in Australia, it was nice before I came back to Europe to get the European season under the way to finish with a win there in Geelong.
Of course, it was great to see Jay McCarthy come through and win his first World Tour race, and of course I'm happy that he wins his first World Tour race at our race, but also it's been very international with international winners and things, and that adds to the prestige, I think, when you have international riders coming and winning. And then beyond the sporting side of things, being an event that the community can participate in, people can bring their 2-year-old down on training wheels on Friday, and some of the pro riders who are dads come along and just be there available, and it's a nice experience on a local community level. And then of course the public ride, which personally has been a great pleasure for me, because I ride through my hometown with 4,000 people. It's really quite an amazing experience. It's very strange to have a race, the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. It's quite strange. My idea was the layout of the race and then quite a bit the course and so on, but it wasn't my idea to name the race like that. But I'm honoured that the Victorian government did that for me, and initially it was a little bit too much, and of course I flew in for the last event, and with 100 or so of my colleagues, and big banners on the side of the road, and your photo on the banners by the freeway or around flags in the town of Geelong. That was of course something to get used to, but it's also for me it's a great way to give back to the sport, and a great way to continue. For me, I've always been motivated to promote the sport of cycling. Cycling's given me a lot in my life. It's given me nearly everything in my life. And to continue in that through an event is the best way that I can continue that as a non-professional rider.
Australian cycling could have no finer ambassador than Evans. The 2009 World Champion's glittering career started in mountain biking, winning back-to-back World Cup titles in 1998 and 99, before making the full-time switch to the road that would eventually lead to Tour de France glory.
Physically, I'm much more suited to racing cross-country, and cross-country bike handling skills are so important. So that helps me, whereas on the road, I like it a lot as well, but maybe I'm not physically so suited to a lot of road racing. Something I'm proud of my career was I was quite a versatile rider. I was a consistent rider over a long period of time, but also in a lot of different events. Came to the sport of cycling through mountain bike, and it was kind of a little bit by accident. I needed to get transport around. I lived out in the country, and well, mountain bike's a good way to move around, and that's really how I started in cycling. Started riding to school, started riding with friends on the weekends. And for one of these friends said, "Oh, we should go and do a mountain bike race," and that's how I came into the sport. Started doing one race and another race, and actually before I knew it, I was going to the Olympics in Atlanta in 1996. But mountain biking for me was a fantastic school, one that brought me into the sport, and otherwise I never would have come to the sport, certainly not through track. I'm an only child from a single parent family. My mother didn't have time to drive me to the nearest velodrome. Probably not through road, because where I lived there wasn't actually many sealed roads, and those were all too much traffic to ride on. But most of all, mountain biking taught me how to work well and get the best out of myself, and that's what helped me get make my best use of my career. Watching Geraint Thomas win his tour, I think, oh, your life's going to change now, and really, the Tour de France is an event. I had no idea how many people around the world watch the Tour de France, but it's watched in absolutely every corner of the world, and people who watch it remember it. They remember who won it, and it certainly seems to. Now I'm 7 years after my victory in 2011, and I'm introduced as Cadel Evans, winner of the Tour de France. And people don't even remember what year it was, but so many people I meet know about it, and they can tell me where they were and where they're watching in Australia at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Or it's really quite. I just couldn't believe how far the Tour de France and especially winning it, how far that resonates around the world. I have to say, people who followed me, they were great supporters of me. They never had high expectations and they never had pressure, but they were so supportive of me, and people, funny even today, people are so grateful that I didn't give up. They were like happy that I won, but they were grateful for me. Thank you for not giving up. I hear this time and time again in Australia, which is really nice as a sports person to hear, because often you come second to tour and the amount of criticism you get is incredible. But that on a human level is something I'm proud of. Right now, Australian cycling, of course, Richie Porte has been unlucky in the last 2 editions of the Tour. It's 2 lost opportunities for him. I hope he's going to have 1 or 2 more opportunities to get his capabilities out on the road. Caleb Ewan's our next big thing to come through at the Tour de France, and he's already coming through in other events, but he's certainly still very young for the results he's got, so I think he's got a long road ahead of him of the possibility to win a lot of big races. And then we're coming through with some next tier of younger riders, and there's a couple of GT Grand Tour riders with Grand Tour possibilities and potential. So we're following some of them, and I don't want to put any pressure on them now. But there's some good talent coming through who I think 5 years from now will be looking to think about being there in the 3rd week of the Tour. Jack Haig's been one who certainly this year through his results has come to attention and came into the sport, I think, of his own ambitions and his own desire, and he really earned everything, all the opportunities that he's had thus far, and I think that's a great basis to go a long way. And I think with his abilities he's got, he's a fast learner, and he's learnt to really. He's got seems to have a good nous for the race, and that's he's got a good potential. And then I think there's a couple other younger guys who are still yet to flourish, but we'll hear about them when they arrive.
I looked up to Cadel obviously when I was getting into cycling, and watched him win his first Tour de France, and it's an awesome moment for me to be in the pro peloton racing in Europe and also in Australia with the past riders that we've had, and still the current riders. Started to make a name for ourselves on the world cycling map, and I hope it keeps growing. And the Cadel Evans race and Tour Down Under now, you can just see it each year how big it's becoming, and it's a good time to be in it.
Regarding the Great Ocean Road Race, my underlying dream and goal with that is that a little guy or a little girl will go there with their friends or their parents or their family and go there and they'll see the race, be inspired by seeing the male or female race go by, and maybe take up cycling and find their way and find a sport, find their calling in cycling, and one day become a professional and come back and win the race.
And with the 5th edition of the men's race taking place on the 27th of January 2019, the crowds are sure to be out in full force as Cadel Evans' legacy continues.